Have you ever worried about walking down the street and just bursting into flames for no reason? Well, maybe you should, because spontaneous human combustion, it's a real thing. And did you know ticks, those creepy little bloodsuckers, they can't jump. Technically, they quest. And there's more, from soundless rooms that'll drive you mad to Amazonian tribes who communicate without speaking a word. Here are 20 random facts that might not seem it, but are entirely true. In the 18th century, Europeans were so scared of tomatoes, they nicknamed them poison apples. This is because wealthy people who ate them often fell mysteriously ill and sometimes even died. But the tomato wasn't to blame. The real culprit was the pewter plates they were served on. Pewter, an alloy rich in lead, reacted with the tomato's high acidity and leached the toxic lead into the food. And I hope this goes without saying, but lead doesn't exactly have a place in a balanced diet. In parts of India, especially during times of drought, locals have an unconventional way of pleasing the rain gods. They marry frogs. To clarify, they don't marry the frogs themselves. They get two frogs together to wed each other. A male and a female are caught, cleaned up, and dressed in tiny traditional wedding outfits with the full ceremony and all. And what's surprising is that there's some logic behind it. Frogs are closely linked to rain in many cultures because their croaking is one of the first natural signs that monsoon season is near. The hope is that by getting the frogs singing, they'll trick the rain gods into making it pour. Spontaneous human combustion is one of the most baffling and chilling unsolved phenomena in medical history. First documented in the 17th century, better known as SHC, it refers to cases where a person appears to suddenly burst into flames without any obvious external ignition. People have been found reduced to ashes despite their surroundings remaining untouched. No one fully understands how it happens, but one leading theory, called the wick effect, suggests that body fat melts and is absorbed by clothing, turning the person into a human candle that burns slowly over time. Sure, I get that, but it still doesn't explain how the fire starts in the first place. Everyone knows this symbol means greater than. But did you know that there's also a symbol for much greater than? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to guess what it is. It's this. You often see it in physics when the difference is so massive that precision doesn't matter, just the sheer scale. Surprisingly, ticks can't jump or fly. Now, this is a problem when your sole purpose is to latch on to living things and drink their blood. That's why they've mastered the technique of questing. It's where they climb to the edge of a blade of grass or leaf, stretch out their front legs, and just wait for their victim to pass by. When someone brushes up against them, they hook on their tiny grappling hook arms and go in for the kill. They're really just mini ninjas. In early Japan, samurai were granted a fearsome privilege known as Kiri Sute Gomen. It literally stands for permission to cut and leave. This law gave them the legal power to kill anyone of a lower class who they felt had shown disrespect or defiance. A commoner who failed to bow or spoke out of turn or simply crossed a samurai's path at the wrong time could be cut down instantly. Although they were expected to report the act and justify it afterwards, this rarely occurred. The message was clear: honor was sacred, and even the slightest insult would be answered with the sword. In early medieval times, silent reading was virtually unheard of. People almost always read out loud, even when they were alone. This wasn't just cultural habit, it was a necessity. Early manuscripts were written in scriptio continua, a dense unspoken stream of capital letters with no spaces, punctuation, or paragraphs. Without these things, it made it difficult to work out where one word ended and the next began. So instead of relying on their eyes alone, people would read the words out loud because hearing the sounds helped them recognize the natural rhythm and meaning. It wasn't until punctuation and consistent word spacing became a thing, around the 8th to 9th centuries, that reading out loud came into fashion. People are weird. I'll elaborate. In behavioral economics, there's something called the zero price effect, and it shows just how irrational we can be when something is labeled as free. Offer someone a premium chocolate for 15 cents or a basic one for nothing, and most people grab the freebie, even if you're getting a way better deal with the paid option. But if you instead charge 1 cent for the chocolate that was previously free, people start choosing the premium one. What's changed? Well, when something is labeled as free, it's emotionally rewarding, feels risk free, and short circuits our brain, making us act on impulse instead of logic. It's a well known marketing tactic. Those free trials and giveaways, they're just trying to get inside our heads. Hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest, the Paraha people speak one of the world's most unusual and fascinating forms of language, one that doesn't involve any actual words at all. So maybe speak isn't quite the right word. Let's go with communicate. In the dense jungle where sight is limited and sounds are muffled, they hold full conversations through only whistles and hums. Give it a go. The next time someone asks you about your day, hum them a tune. You never know, they might just whistle back. How'd they come up with the name, the Los Angeles Lakers? I mean, LA isn't really well known for its lakes. Well, it goes back to their roots. The team originally came from Minneapolis, Minnesota, nicknamed the Land of 10,000 Lakes. When the franchise moved in the 1960s, they just kept the name. So yeah, I guess that's it. That's the reason. It's nice to have a little peace and quiet, but there's a point where too much silence can quite literally drive you mad. Allfield Laboratories in Minnesota is home to the world's quietest room, a soundproof chamber that absorbs 99.99% of all noise. It registers well below the threshold of human hearing at -9 decibels. Pretty disturbing when all you can hear is your own heartbeat thumping and the blood gushing through your veins. This is why people can't even last more than 30 minutes inside. It really messes with their head. In December of 1945, 5 US Navy bombers, known as Flight 19, vanished during a routine training mission over the Atlantic. The leader of the flight began sounding confused and disoriented. He'd claimed their compasses had stopped working and they didn't recognize the land below. Moments later, their radio cut out entirely. They sent a rescue plane carrying 13 crew members to search for them, but it vanished too. No wreckage was ever recovered from either aircraft, and this eerie double disappearance cemented the Bermuda Triangle's status as one of the most mysterious and unsettling regions on Earth. Way back in the 10th century, the English town of Chester was under threat from Viking raiders, fierce Norse invaders known for tearing through towns and leaving panic and ruin in their wake. But this particular town wasn't having it. Issue was, they didn't have many weapons and even less warriors to use them. But they did have bees. They got creative. They loaded beehives filled with bees onto catapults, launched them right over the town walls, and sent the raiders scampering. Hurling thousands of angry bees at your enemy is a bit unconventional, but it sure can be effective. In 2013, curators at a museum in England were stunned when a 3,000-year-old Egyptian statue mysteriously began rotating inside its sealed glass case. The 10-inch tall figure would subtly shift position overnight, but the weird thing is that no one ever saw it move. So they set up a time-lapse camera, and what they found was unnerving. The footage showed the statue slowly turning all on its own. The leading theory is that vibrations caused it to move, but this doesn't explain how the statue had, up until that point, remained completely motionless for decades. Now, I've watched my fair share of horror films, and this one has all the hallmarks of one of those ancient Egyptian curses. Everyone knows the Adidas 3 stripes, and I'm aware that others call it Adidas, but not me. Well, they probably don't know the 3-stripe logo's origin. In 1952, Finnish sports brand Kahoo Sports had been using the logo on its trainers. But after World War II, the company was in a bit of a financial predicament. They needed money, so they agreed to sell the trademark. For 2 bottles of whiskey and what would be about $1,800 today. I guess it's lucky they got the whiskey, because no doubt they're drowning their sorrows right now. For centuries, being left-handed wasn't just inconvenient, it was downright sinister. Literally, the word sinister actually traces back to the Latin word for left. Left-handed people were seen as unlucky and unnatural, to the point where schools forced left-handed children to write with their right hand. They'd have their left hand tied behind their back and routinely get slapped with a ruler if they chose otherwise. This practice persisted well into the 20th century, driven by the belief that being right-handed was the only socially acceptable way to be. The Joker didn't exist in traditional European decks of cards. It was first introduced by the US in the 1860s for the game Euchre. Players needed a trump card stronger than any other, so they created what back then they called the best bower. To make it stand out, card makers began illustrating the cards with jesters and clowns, symbols of chaos, trickery, and unpredictability. The name Joker is believed to have evolved either from this imagery or as a playful twist on the word euchre itself. More than half of the world's countries now have birth rates below replacement level. Roughly 2.1 children per couple, the number needed to keep a population stable. This means global population growth is slowing rapidly. Estimates are we'll peak at 10.4 billion people by 2080, and then we're in for some pain. I'm talking worker shortages, pension systems stretched to the brink, and whole economies effectively crashing. I swear just last week they were talking about overpopulation. Man, I can't keep up. The Nazca lines are enormous geoglyphs, large-scale designs etched directly into the ground. Think ancient crop circles. Located in southern Peru and spanning over 190 square miles, they feature massive geometric shapes and intricate animal figures like monkeys, spiders, and hummingbirds. While many believe they were used for religious or astrological purposes, their true meaning remains a mystery. Deep inside a remote mountain in West Texas, engineers are busy at work constructing the clock of the long now, the most outrageous timepiece ever conceived. It's a 200-foot tall mechanical clock designed to tick once per year. It's got a century hand that moves every 100 years and a cuckoo that appears every millennium. They say its purpose is to encourage long-term thinking, a different perspective, but it just sounds like a billionaire's flex to me. And we're done. We covered a bit, from elaborate rain god frog weddings to how logic goes completely out of the window when something is labelled as free.
Ooh.
I wonder if that worked. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's another one coming your way next week, so it's bye for now, and I'll catch you next time.